Well, this source close to A'ja Wilson is claiming they offered A'ja Wilson more money than Caitlin Clark to play.
If you intend to challenge the monarch, your aim must be perfect. However, what occurs when the reigning queen targets a newcomer and ends up looking entirely ridiculous instead? What happens when the sport's premier icon attempts to put the rising star in her place, only for the plan to blow up in her face immediately? Welcome back to the Clark Heat channel, everyone. Today, we are analyzing the most volatile petty conflict currently unfolding in women's professional basketball. We are diving into A'ja Wilson versus Caitlin Clark. For months, commentators attempted to frame this dynamic as a friendly rivalry. They claimed that the seasoned athletes were merely introducing Caitlin to the professional ranks. But let's look at this honestly. We all witnessed the reality. We saw the aggressive fouls and the thinly veiled shots taken during press conferences. Most notably, we watched the moment A'ja Wilson attempted to humble Caitlin Clark, only to reveal her own deep-seated insecurity to the world. This narrative extends far beyond the sport of basketball. It centers on authority, revenue, and a massive shift in leadership that certain veterans simply refuse to accept. When A'ja Wilson, the two-time MVP title holder and the face of the Las Vegas Aces, decided to take a jab at Caitlin Clark, she believed she was establishing her supremacy. She wanted to remind everyone whose league this truly is, but the immediate pushback from fans, coupled with Caitlin's exceptional performance on the court, delivered a swift dose of instant karma. Today, we are breaking down exactly how this strategy failed and why A'ja Wilson might have lost the battle before it even properly started. Let's lay out the background because perspective is essential here. A'ja Wilson has represented the ultimate benchmark for years. Her talent is undeniable, backed by a list of achievements that requires no defense. But then Caitlin Clark arrives, a rookie who had not logged a single minute of professional game time, yet was already packing out stadiums that A'ja Wilson could not fill over a 5-year span. She secured a $28 million endorsement contract with Nike, the largest history has seen, before A'ja even had her own signature shoe officially announced. Do you honestly believe that didn't cause frustration? Do you think A'ja Wilson felt completely fine watching a 22-year-old rookie out of Iowa receive the royal treatment? Naturally, she felt the sting. That resentment and deep bitterness eventually surfaced, beginning with passive-aggressive comments and grievances on social media regarding chartered flights and preferential treatment. It escalated into remarks regarding race, with A'ja implying that Caitlin's fame was merely a byproduct of being white, utterly disregarding her talent for pulling up from the logo and scoring 40 points a night. However, the true plot to humiliate Caitlin unfolded directly on the court, supported by a narrative the Aces attempted to push forward. The game plan was straightforward. Intimidate the rookie, make her appear vulnerable, exploit her defensive weaknesses, and physically overpower her. A'ja Wilson and her teammates intended to welcome her to the professional level by double-teaming her and damaging her statistics, all to argue that she was nothing more than exaggerated media hype. They desperately wanted a highlight reel showcasing Caitlin Clark faltering against a true league icon. A'ja desired that viral moment where she rejects Caitlin's shot or scores right over her, delivering a stare-down to prove to the world that there are distinct tiers to this game. Yet, this is precisely where the plan fell apart, and it fell apart spectacularly. Rather than looking like dominant veterans offering a lesson, A'ja and her team simply appeared to be bullies entirely fixated on a single first-year player. The level of aggression was excessive, and the scrutiny was far too concentrated. It no longer resembled a standard basketball game. It felt deeply personal, and the audience saw right through it. When you hold the title of reigning MVP and are considered the finest player on the planet, you do not need to exert that much effort to make a point against a newcomer. By striving so desperately to disgrace Caitlin, A'ja Wilson actually raised the rookie's profile. She demonstrated to observers that Caitlin Clark is a genuine danger to the competition. Teams do not deploy double teams and physical fouls against an ordinary player. They reserve that for an elite competitor. A'ja essentially confirmed Caitlin's elite status by treating her as the ultimate threat. Furthermore, let's examine the financial fallout here, because this is where the situation becomes truly ironic. A'ja believed that by deflating Caitlin's popularity, she would remind Nike and major corporate sponsors that she remains the premier asset. She presumed that outplaying the rookie would convince fans to switch alliances. Instead, the exact opposite transpired, as the constant hostility only caused Caitlyn's massive fanbase to become more fiercely loyal. It created a classic Caitlyn against the world storyline, which serves as absolute marketing gold. Every single time Aya or another veteran takes a jab, Caitlyn's jersey sales experience a massive surge. Every time they attempt to haze her, television viewership numbers skyrocket because everyone tunes in to see if the rookie can handle the pressure. Aya Wilson attempted to protect the borders of women's basketball, but she essentially handed Caitlyn the keys to the entire empire. Just look at how it appears to the public. You see Aya Wilson, an established icon, appearing resentful and bothered, while Caitlyn Clark quietly absorbs the physical play, stands back up, and says absolutely nothing. She avoids talking trash in interviews and refrains from venting on Twitter. She simply plays the game. That silent refusal to participate in the conflict is driving Aya Wilson crazy. It represents the ultimate display of control. By refusing to respond to Aya's attempts to mock her, Caitlyn is effectively demonstrating that she is there to play basketball, while her rival is merely playing games. A particular instance perfectly demonstrates how this strategy collapsed. We all recall the immense excitement preceding their initial showdown, the Aces versus the Fever. The energy in the building was incredible. Aya Wilson started the game with extreme intensity, attempting to reject every shot and score on every single possession she anchored. To her credit, Aya recorded impressive statistics. She is an extraordinary athlete, and no one disputes that fact. The narrative, however, did not center on Aya's excellence. It focused on why the Aces were competing as if it were Game 7 of the WNBA Finals against a bottom-tier team. They appeared panicked. Yet, right in the center of that intense pressure, Caitlyn Clark hit those trademark step-back long-distance shots. She delivered brilliant passes through impossible gaps. When the game concluded, the discussion did not revolve around Aya's brilliance. It focused entirely on the animosity. It focused on blatant jealousy. Aya Wilson wanted the media coverage to proclaim that she had schooled the rookie. Instead, the public wondered why WNBA veterans appear so deeply threatened by Caitlyn Clark. It represents a total public relations nightmare. It backfired on a grand scale. Aya Wilson, who dedicated years to building an image centered on positivity and mentorship, instantly appeared to be the antagonist of her own narrative. Let's examine the signature shoe contract more closely, because it is impossible to separate the financial aspect from the underlying resentment. When the public learned that Caitlyn was securing $28 million for a signature sneaker line right out of the gate, Aya's online behavior revealed everything. She posted messages and approved critical comments, making it crystal clear that she felt slighted. Frankly, her feelings are justified. She earned her own signature shoe line years ago as a multi-time champion. Instead of focusing her frustration toward Nike or the corporate structure, however, she aimed all of that negative energy directly at Caitlyn. She attempted to position Caitlyn as the ultimate symbol of white privilege within the sport, trying to diminish her by arguing she had never truly earned her fame. But that plan failed. When you analyze the concrete data, ticket purchases, television viewership, and merchandise sales, Caitlyn Clark is generating more capital in a 3-month span than the majority of athletes produce across their entire careers. Reality is not dictated by emotion. By attacking Caitlyn's corporate backing, Aya only emphasized the reality that she simply does not generate the same commercial impact. It forced a direct evaluation where Aya Wilson clearly falls short regarding commercial appeal and business value. It prompted observers to review the metrics and understand that Caitlyn is actually significantly undercompensated relative to the revenue she creates. Aya tried to paint Caitlyn as a corporate creation, but she instead illuminated how poorly the WNBA had promoted its own elite talent over the previous decade. What about the audience? The primary point of discussion had been whether Caitlyn Clark would even take the court at all. Rumors even circulated suggesting the league might offer her an ownership stake. Naturally, social media erupted over this news, particularly because another prominent star who happens to wear number 22 and who has been the subject of heavy speculation is Aya Wilson. This presents a dangerous scenario for Aya. While the WNBA possesses a dedicated core audience, Caitlyn Clark is attracting millions of entirely new viewers. This new demographic cares nothing about league history or internal politics. They only witness a brilliant rookie being targeted by resentful veterans. Aya Wilson runs the risk of alienating the exact audience that is finally funding their increased salaries. When you attempt to humiliate the most beloved player, you rapidly transform into public enemy number one. Online platforms were saturated with statements from fans claiming they previously admired Aya, but found this conduct entirely distasteful. People questioned why she was behaving like a high school bully, and that type of corporate brand damage is incredibly difficult to repair. The ultimate irony is that if Aya Wilson had simply embraced Caitlin Clark, welcomed her warmly, and suggested they grow the sport together, Aya would be lauded as an absolute hero. She would be the revered queen mentoring the next generation, moving even more merchandise because a rising tide lifts all ships. Instead, she opted for hostility. She chose to attempt to eclipse her. Now, she resembles the old establishment desperately clinging to authority as it slides right out of her grasp. We must also look at the aggressive defensive tactics designed to embarrass the rookie. The Aces' blueprint involved full court pressure directed at Caitlin. Guarding her across all 90 feet of the hardwood, they aimed to trigger turnovers and expose her ball handling as unpolished. Admittedly, Caitlin recorded turnovers. She is a rookie point guard operating within a developing lineup. However, every time she successfully navigated the pressure, split the defense, assisted an open teammate, or hit a shot from 30 feet out, it made the Aces' extreme efforts appear absurd. It felt like absolute overkill. It resembled bringing a tank into a knife fight, yet somehow still taking damage. When you expend that much energy to halt a single competitor and she still records 15 or 20 points along with 7 assists, you have not humiliated her. You have only confirmed her greatness. Furthermore, look at the locker room dynamics across the profession. Other athletes recognize this failure as well. Competitors are beginning to understand that the Caitlin Clark hostility movement looks terrible, and Aya Wilson is leading the charge. If the public sentiment changes and fans begin viewing veterans as bitter, it will ultimately impact everyone's earnings. With massive new television broadcasting agreements on the horizon, the total financial valuation of the WNBA is surging strictly due to the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. By trying to discredit this financial driver, Aya Wilson is essentially damaging the very hand that is poised to provide her with a highly lucrative maximum contract. It is short-sighted, driven by emotion, and represents poor business strategy. Caitlin Clark's counter-strategy has been an absolute masterclass in overcoming hostility with grace and answering critics with performance. She consistently commends Aya during media sessions, labeling her an extraordinary competitor. She shows deep respect for the sport, and that distinct variance makes Aya's hostility appear completely unprovoked and petty. It creates an image of a one-sided feud where the iconic veteran is merely boxing with a shadow. Caitlin is occupying space in their minds without paying a single cent. So, where do things go from here? The campaign to humiliate Caitlin Clark has completely missed its mark. The aggressive welcome to the league moments have passed, yet she remains standing. She remains in the starting lineup. She continues to fill massive arenas. The public question shifted from, can Caitlin endure the pressure? To, why won't the veterans give her space to breathe? Aya Wilson must adjust her approach. She needs to recognize that this drama blew up in her face and completely alter her strategy. Because at this moment, every eye roll and every critical social media interaction erodes the immense reputation she dedicated years to establishing. The reality is that leadership is transitioning regardless of whether Aya Wilson approves. This does not imply that Aya is suddenly declining in skill. She remains an MVP caliber player, but she is no longer the central attraction. Attempting to diminish the ascending star will not return you to the center of attention. It simply casts you as the antagonist. In the world of sports, the villain typically ends up losing. Aya Wilson tried to dictate the narrative in the court of public opinion. She attempted to engage in a game of petty humiliation, and she failed. Immediately, the public rallied around the rookie. The metrics supported the newcomer, and the actual sport of basketball remained constant. When everything is said and done, the object is to put the ball in the basket. As long as Caitlin Clark continues hitting long-range shots from past midcourt, no amount of criticism, physical play, or veteran resentment can halt the shift that is underway. What are your thoughts on this situation? Did Aya Wilson step out of line? Is she genuinely envious of the massive media spotlight Caitlin Clark is capturing? Or is this simply intense competitive fire that sports commentators are exaggerating entirely? Share your views with me. Is Caitlin Clark effectively managing this intense onboarding process, or has Aya Wilson successfully exposed her weaknesses? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you found this analysis of the conflict engaging, hit that like button, subscribe to the Clark Heat channel, and activate notifications so you never miss a new report on this WNBA battle. This is merely the opening chapter. The postseason is on the horizon, and if these two elite teams square off, look for absolute fireworks on the hardwood. Thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next broadcast.